Hey, what's up? The question that was asked was how would I create a report like this? Now, this is a really simple report, and I'll explain to you what we're actually doing with it. Basically, this is just a simplified door list that breaks out only by the type of door that it is, so arch flat panel, solid wood drawer front, the width, and the height. And that's it. There's no material differentiation. There's no hinge, anything else. Just very simple list of doors in the job. And when I say it breaks out by the door type, if we go to the room, cabinet, and doors, basically you can see here is my arch door, my solid wood drawer front, and my flat panel here. I can change anything here. Let's put the two and a half picture frame. We'll hit OK, reports, report center, and there's my report. And you can see now I have the 2.5 picture frame RP door. So to get this is actually really simple. I'll go to setup reports, find the report, and I didn't really do much. It was just a kind of a proof of concept report. So I will click on report properties, and you can see there's one table here. And it has the number of doors, the door name, width, and height string. And that's it. Very simple. The cabinet quantity is one of the features here, and we will build that to match what we need. So let's go ahead and close this, and let's create this from scratch. So if I hit new report, and you can see I have no tables or anything. I'm just going to call this simple door list. We'll say simple door list, groups by type, width, height. I misspelled width. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a new table. And we will go to add the doors table. Click the plus button and just add any field we want here, and we'll hit finish. All right, now that's not the table we want. What we're going to do, we're going to go to SQL, and we're going to modify this. And what I'm going to take you through is the process of how I build a query by hand to get the information I want. So I start by changing this from whatever I selected to the asterisk, which is Shift and 8 on your keyboard. When I click on the table, it rebuilds the table, and now you can see I have all of the door information. Well, I don't want all the door information, but the reason that we want to see this is I want to be able to see a list of all of the columns and how I'm going to want them. Now, I already created this report, so I know I want the width string, which is right here. I want the door name, and I want the height string, and that's it. That's the only information I really want from this table. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's get the door name, the width string, and height string. So notice how there's spaces between each one of those words. That'll come into play when we build our SQL. So we'll go here, we'll get rid of the asterisk, and we'll type in, we will go doors dot, and what we've done is we've qualified that that's a specific table in the database that we need to use. And the reason we do that is because we might join multiple tables together to get the end result that we need, which we will be doing in this query. Select doors dot, we're going to do open square bracket, door space name, close square bracket. And we've encompassed that field name in a set of brackets because there's a space. That lets the database know that it does not conform to the proper naming schedule that would allow it to just be typed out. So we've given it a custom name or a keyword name or something that the database doesn't normally accept. But if we put it in the square brackets, the database will override itself and say, oh, okay, we need to look for this field. So then I'm going to put a comma, space, doors, dot, width string, and it doesn't matter what we put in first, doors width or doors height, because when we build the report itself, that's where we're going to set the fields where we want them to be. And then again, a comma, doors dot height string. All right, if I refresh this, if I typed anything wrong, when I click on the doors table, it's going to refresh the SQL in the database, pull all the information, and show us what we've done wrong. When I click on it, nothing happened, which means we didn't get it. We didn't have any problems. Let's go ahead and put in something that we know is incorrect. Let's say doors dot blah blah. That's not a real thing. It's not there. So when I click on it, now I've gotten an error. That error tells me no value given for one or more required parameters. Now, that's kind of fancy database talk for you tried to select a field, or you tried to do something, you tried to use a value from a table that does not exist. So we'll just hit OK, and we will get rid of the doors.blah blah. Click on it again, and there we go. The error is gone. We'll hit data preview, and now you can see we have the information we need. But we have one record for 3 doors here that are identical. You can see down here a little bit further, we have 2 records here. So we want to compress them together. So what we have to do is we have to group the information together. So I will go back to the SQL, and below from, I will type in group by. The reason that we put it on in all caps is mainly for usage inside of Cabinet Vision. You could type it in lowercase, it doesn't matter, but this helps us to more easily identify it and use it later. So I'm going to tell it what criteria I want to group by. Now I have to group by all of the information that is in the select field. Okay, I can't leave any of that information out. I can add more, but everything that's in that select field has to be in the group by, and that's just a rule, not even a rule, we'll call it a law of SQL. You cannot get around that. The only exception to the law is if it's a equation instead of certain equations instead of a field. So we're going to type in doors.doorName. You know what? Let's go ahead and get rid of that. Let's make it a little bit easier on ourselves. Let's just copy what's in the select field right now. And I use Control-C on my keyboard to do that. I'm going to paste it with Control-V. And now, when I click on it, I got no errors because I didn't put in something incorrectly. As a matter of fact, let's see what happens. Let's take out this doors.height string. Let's take that out. And let's click on it and see what happens when I don't have something in my select field, or in my group by field that's in my select. Click on that now, it's giving me that fancy SQL lingo again, or database lingo. So you tried to execute a query that does not include the specified expression, height string, as part of an aggregate function. So the group by field, or the group by statement inside of an SQL statement, is basically called an aggregate function. All right, that's what it's talking about. So it's telling me right now that height string is not been part of the grouping criteria. So I click OK. I can put that back in, click on it again. Now no errors. When I go to my data preview, now I have that list that looks a lot more like what I want. But we're missing a piece of information here. And that piece of information is basically the quantity. I don't know how many of each I need. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back to our SQL, and we can put it anywhere. I just personally prefer to have it at the front. But what I want to do is I want to count each record that has this grouping criteria. So if the record or the field, so if I take this out, let me go ahead so I can explain what I mean by that. Every record here, each line is called a record. So when that record, each record, I want it to count when the door name, height, width string, and height string match. I want that to add 1 to my count for a quantity total. So I need 1, 2, 3. So Let's put the group by back in here. Refresh. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the count expression or equation to do that. And that's just a function of the database that's always there. I go count, open parentheses, and I have to tell it what field to count. To be fair, it really doesn't matter, but I like to use numbers in this instead of strings. So I'm going to tell it doors.door ID. And again, because there's spaces, you see that I put door ID inside of square brackets. I'm going to close this parentheses. And then what we're going to do is we're going to give this an alias. All right, and that alias is going to be the name that it shows up inside of the table. And let me show you what happens if I don't give it an alias. So we have to end this addition here with adding a comma so that it knows that that I've got additional fields after that. So let's refresh, hit data preview, and you can see I get EXPR 1000. Well, that's the expression 1000. That's just a unique name that the database has issued to that value. So the alias, we don't want it to be that. When we use it in formulas, we don't want to have to remember expression 1000, expression 2000. Those things get kind of confusing after a while. We want hard names. So that's where we come in and put an alias. So I can just, before the comma and after the close parentheses, I can put a space and type in as, and then I can give it a name. There's a lot of things we can do for naming, but until you get familiarized with certain database keywords, SQL keywords and such, I personally recommend always putting your alias inside of square brackets. That way, if anything comes up, you can always ensure that the database will still just use it anyways. And I'm going to call this open square bracket QTY close square bracket. When I refresh again, go back to data preview, you can see now it says quantity. All right, so now we've got the table data the way we want. You see we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 doors here, or 8 records, I should say. What we want to do now, we also want to make sure that it's always going to order by the door name, because you notice in the last report that we had, that's where it kind of made the big grouping. So let's ensure that this is always the way it goes. Also, as a keynote, if you're using anything in the order field, what we're about to do, we're going to say order by. Anything that's here needs to be in the group by as well. So select and order by, you have to have in the group by. So we can go doors.door name, and we're going to leave that. If we don't qualify with how we want it to order, it goes ascending. So from the smallest value to the largest value. And that is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then A through Z. Because the door name is a string value. Now that can lead to issues in the future, and you should always ensure that you order by numbers whenever you can. The reason being, let's leave this right here, and we'll click on doors, and we'll look at this for a second. We can look at our, we don't have anything that shows up like this, but when we look at a string, the numbers 10, you'd think that the number that comes after that would be 11, but I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. Let's say you had 1 through 20 on certain sizes, maybe 1 inch, from 1 inch to 20 inches, and every inch in between. So that is literally 20 different unique inches in your width string. All right, you would think it'd go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but it wouldn't. It would go 1, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 2, 20, you know, and so on and so forth, because that's how string sorting works. So if we can sort by numbers, we'll always get it in the proper 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, so on and so forth. So we're going to go back to the SQL tab, And doors.name is fine because that's usually shouldn't be and have an error with that. That shouldn't be a big issue. But we notice we have width string and height string, and this is why I brought this up, because we don't want to order by the width and height string because we're going to run into that issue. We're going to go doors.height descending, so it'll go from largest to smallest, and then doors.width descending, again, from smallest to largest. Now, if I click here, you can see I've got that error again that says that I don't have doors.height as part of an aggregate function. So to solve that, all I need to do, take the height, the doors.height and doors.width, and add it to my group by. Now you might stop there and think, well, that could throw off the grouping, but luckily, since we're already grouping by the width string and height string, it's not going to have any impact on our grouping. So we can just here at the end go doors.height and doors.width. So I'll click on the item here again. You see no more errors. And I'll click on the data preview, and now it's sorting everything exactly the way I want. Before, it had the arched panels, then all of the solid wood drawer fronts, and then the flat panels. But now we're grouping and sorting exactly what we need. Finally, what we're going to do is we're going to work on this cabinet quantity field. That will give us an indication of what cabinet gets how many doors in the job. And it's a vital piece of information. Now, that wasn't specifically asked for before, but it's so vital that I'm absolutely going to walk you through how this works. So, what we're going to do is we're going to open up Notepad, okay? And again, we're going to hand build this. And the reason I'm going through hand building this instead of building this in Microsoft Access or FlySpeed SQL query or anything like that is that it's, I think, understanding how these SQL queries are built will be a much better indication or learning experience for you to see how you are expected to make these queries. Don't hold any illusions. SQL programming is a programming language in and of itself. It can be extremely complex and difficult, but when you get the reports you need, it's just a wonderful kind of a feeling to be able to get all the information exactly the way you need in the format you want. So don't get frustrated if you can't get your SQL query just right. It's all right. Even professionals that have been doing it for years have to get other people's help for it. So with that in mind, let's open up. I'm going to open up Notepad++, which is a invaluable tool. Let me get rid of some of these. So with this open, we can start building our query. And this is going to be very similar to the one we did before. We're going to go select. We're going to have from. We're going to have a group by. And then we're going to have a having field. This is like a where field where we're filtering by certain criteria. But because we're grouping, this is just another way we can do it. And it's the way we want to do it. And you'll see how we go or how this is going to impact that, that query. So we have these 4 items here. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to our doors table. We're going to go back here, SQL, and we're going to grab this group by. Okay, we're going to copy it by hitting Control-C on our keyboard. We're going to go here. I might as well just paste that right there because we have to have the grouping identical in the cabinet quantity that we have in the doors table with one single exception. We need to put comma cabinets dot cabinet ID, and you'll see why we need that once we get to the select area. All right, now we're going to go to from, and we're going to go. We know we need to pull information. Actually, let's go ahead and let's change this from cabinets.cabinet ID to doors.door ID. That way we can make our from. That's not right. Sorry. Doors.cabinet ID. That will make our from clause much simpler because instead of having to join in the cabinet information, we can just say doors. All right, because we're only pulling from the doors table. Perfect. So we need to go to select, and we're going to select count of doors.door ID, just like we did before, as quantity. And then we're going to go doors.cabinet ID as cabinet. And let's go ahead and put that in square brackets. So that's our simple select. That's all we need, because we need a quantity and we need a cabinet number. We need to pull from the doors table, and we need to go to grouping to have that grouping. That's why, remember I told you, if we have a field here, it has to show up here. We can add more, but everything that's here has to be here. And just like before, we didn't need to group by the count because it is a aggregate function or a special function in the database. So that doesn't need to be in the group by. Finally, we're going to use the having, and this is the reason we need this. Is it's going to take the information that is in the table that has the door name, the height string, the width string, and it's going to turn that into this list specifically for that type of door. Right now, it has no way to link them together. So what we're going to do is we're going to go doors.door name equals, and first we're going to put a single quote, and then we're going to put a curly brace. Okay, like a square, it's the same key on your keyboard as a square bracket, but you just hold down the shift keyword or button. Then we're going to type in door name. We're going to shift and close curly brace, and then put a another single quote mark. The reason that we put those there is that Cabinet Vision is going to take every field that is inside of a curly brace, and it's going to replace it with a specific value. What value is that? Well, that's why we have it at door name, because if we go back to Cabinet Vision and we look at doors and we go to our preview table, it says door name. That's what it's going to do. It's going to look for that field for this record, and it's going to say, okay, replace that curly braced value of door name with this value, arched flat panel or flat panel or whatever record it's on. Okay, so we always need to make sure that if we're naming something or we're changing names here, we change it in our cabinet quantity feature. So let's go back to this, and then we're going to tell it what else do we need to have in this. Well, we need the doors width and the doors height string. As a matter of fact, just to be honest, we can remove the width and height here just for simplification. I know you can't see, I'm throwing my hands up, kind of talking with my hands. I should enable my webcam next time. So because that doesn't affect the grouping at all, it doesn't need to be there, and it just simplifies it, makes it easier for us to look at. But we need to get the width string and height string as well. So we're going to say and doors dot width string equals, again, single quote, open curly brace, width string, close curly brace, single quote. And finally, we're going to do the same thing for doors dot height string equals height string. All right, and that is the cabinet quantity SQL we need. So we're going to collapse this down into one big line. Notice I am closing it down and then putting a space to ensure that everything comes out correctly. And then we're going to copy this whole thing, go here, I'm going to right click, and we're going to paste that in. Now, I'll be honest with you, it might happen while we're working on this. Sometimes, even though I've done this hundreds of times, I will get that SQL incorrect. Something will come up, it'll say either the numbers won't come out right, or the I'll get an error, like you can't do that or you did something wrong. So it's not uncommon. If that happens to you, don't think that something's wrong. That happens to everybody. And we won't know if that's wrong until we either generate the report or we go to the design mode of the report, because that's when Cabinet Vision is going to actually use that. Right now, it's just kind of sitting there as text. So I need to hit close. I had an issue where I had to restart the video and restart Cabinet Vision. So normally it would automatically pop in to the report designer because we hit new report. So since I had to close Cabinet Vision and get this and redo this, we'll make sure it's selected. I'm gonna hit design report, and we're gonna get the same effect though. You're gonna see this screen come up. I'm just gonna hit cancel. We don't need to go through all the steps of hitting next, because we can go insert, report container. We can draw the container where we want. Select our table. Now you notice I didn't get an error, which means that the SQL that we created actually worked properly. And you can see it's even here. While we didn't in our table tell it that we wanted a cabinet quantity list variable or field, it's there. Cabinet Vision added that in after the fact. So we know it worked. At least we know it didn't cause an error. So I'm going to just double click on quantity. Then I'm going to do width string and height string. I'm just going to hit OK. And you can see it filled out these fields. And I'm going to go here, double click on the table doors. I'm going to go to the group header, just hit OK. And we're going to group by doors.door_name. It's important to note that anytime there's a space in a name, Combit, the engine that creates the report, will replace that with an underscore. So we don't do braces and stuff like that here. We literally just replace the space with an underscore. We'll hit OK, and so this is no longer red or pink as it was before. And we will click this. We'll go to Fields, Doors, Door Name. All right, so we'll hit OK, and you can see that popped up. Let's give it a bigger width. We can eventually get to calculating the field, the width of the container, but right now let's just put 150 just to give it a nice big space. We'll hit OK, and I don't really like. Let's get rid of these footer and header lines. This is in Cabinet Vision version 11. I should have said that before I started, but sorry about that. So now I'll hit OK. I've got, oh, did I delete the wrong thing? Oh no, it's there. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna copy this, Control C. Actually, we're gonna go to here, Control C, go to group header and paste that in. And we're going to tell it quantity. I'm going to change this to width. And height. And you know what? Let's I misdid that. Let's redo this. Let's go ahead. I'm going to show you how I made a mistake, so I'm just going to delete this, and I'm going to add a new table, because what I should have done is this. I should have done door name. Nope, that's not right. I should have done quantity, width, height, cabinet quantity list. Actually, let's take out height. Let's leave that just width string. I'll show you why I want that in a second. So I've got these fields, and you can see now this looks like it's coming out correct. So we're seeing our cabinet quantity list here. That's I like that right now as it sits. So I'm happy with that so far. So now let's go ahead and modify this. Let's get this header line, and we're gonna X that out. We're gonna go to group header, hit OK. We're gonna paste that there. Then we're gonna right click, insert new table line. All right. The reason we're doing this is we're going to add the door name. We're going to make sure that this is grouped by, see how it's pink right now? It means there's an error, and it'll throw an error when we try to run the report. We go doors.door name. All right, we're going to do the same thing for this one. Doors.door name. And you can always just click on this and go through here to do that. You don't have to type it in. And I'm going to make sure that this is repeated as header. so that if we have so many doors in our report that it creates a whole new page, it's going to create this quantity width string and cabinet quantity list again, just to get it. Now I'm going to go here and I'm going to change this to width by height. Hit OK. I'm going to go to my data line. I'm going to now make that data show up like that. So what we have to do is we're gonna trim this. Sorry, a trim. I'm going to go doors dot width string. We're going to say plus space x space plus a trim doors dot height string. So now it looks like a proper sizing value here. We can change that to whatever you want. If you wanted it height string first or width string first, that's up to you. We put a trim because there are 5 leading spaces before the actual string starts. That's a feature of the database. We have that in there for reasons. So if you want it to show up, if we didn't have that, here I'll show you. If we did doors dot width string, you can see now there's not a space there. Okay, there we go. Keep clicking the wrong button. Sorry, guys. Well, that's new. So in previous versions of Combat, it didn't trim those off automatically. I guess it does now. So that's cool. So never mind. Ignore what I said about the trim value. Just type it in just like this. Doors.width string. You put the space in the X and doors.height string. That's how it shows up here in the sample. But I guess it automatically trims off that white space. That's cool. New to me. So I guess we all learned something today. We're going to go back to this and we're going to give it a big value again, 150. We're going to hit OK. Oh, and we still forgot to delete that footer line. So let's just get rid of that, just to get rid of that extra thing there. We'll close this. Yes, and there we go. We basically got our report, and now all you have to do is really style it the way you want it. If you wanted to add job information, you just add a job information table. So we go to Setup, Properties, and we would just go here to Job Info, Add. And this one was a really simple one. We would go star. And now I have all my job info. Now, it might seem like we're done, but we're actually not. Because what we have here is a table with all our data, but we're running into one problem. We don't have any filtering. That means if I go to filter out a room or a cabinet, it's not going to do anything. It's literally just going to sit there. It's going to have all the same information. So what we have to do is we have to modify our SQL to be able to handle that. So I could come here to the cabinet ID field, and I could say doors.cabinet ID. But what if I just wanted to filter by whole rooms? I don't have a room ID field in the doors table. So what I have to do is I have to join the cabinet table. Now every door in a job is going to exist in a cabinet. That's just going to happen. So thankfully, because we can join the cabinet, we have that feature that every door is in a cabinet, we can literally say, okay, let's get that room information from the cabinet. And all we have to do that is we go to the from clause and we go inner join. And we can use an inner join again, and I'm saying this again just to stress how important it is to know the connection between the databases, or the connection between the objects, doors, rollouts, drawers, stuff like that, and cabinets and rooms and job. But because every door will have a matching cabinet, we can do an inner join, and we We want to join the cabinets table, and we want to tell it what we want to join it on, or how do we want to link the tables together. Well, we want the doors.cabinet ID to equal the cabinets.cabinet ID. All right, and when I click refresh, no errors. So because while, so no errors, which means we've got that good so far. If I now go to the room ID field, I can go cabinets.room ID, and there we go. If I hit close, and I now go to look at this view, let's go ahead and let's put this in the WIP section, my work in progress. So we'll go simple door list. We'll say filter out this cabinet drawer stack. Let's filter out all of the base cabinets. There we go. So if I hadn't have filled in that information the way it was, it wouldn't have worked. So that's that. We now have a fully functioning report that will do what we need with a lot of features and qualifications there. We can go through and now just change the information to suit our own personal needs, and that's that. If you have any questions, please feel free, post them here on eSupport, and let us know if you run into anything that doesn't work out for you.